Have you ever wondered? Why do some people seem so lucky while you feel like everything is twice as hard? This isn't luck, it's mindset. It all starts with how you think. If your mind is full of complaints, fears, and doubts, you'll just attract more of them into your life. But if you learn to think like a Stoic, with calm, focus, and self-control, you'll see how everything starts to fall into place. This isn't magic, it's just you taking control of your mind. Stay with me until the end, because today we'll explain how changing your thoughts can completely change your life. You'll discover how to stay calm when everything is falling apart, how to find opportunities in chaos, and how true power isn't about what's happening outside, but what you choose to think inside. Because when you start thinking this way, everything will start to work out for you. Not because the world will change, but because you will change. You'll become someone who can make the world work in your favor. But before we begin, I invite you to do something simple but powerful. Go to the comments right now and write this with powerful intention. Today, I am changing my life by changing my thoughts. Write it slowly. Feel every word. This affirmation will lock into your mind and, from today, reprogram your outlook. If you're ready, let's start. First lesson. Your thoughts are your life. First lesson. Your thoughts are your life. Everything that happens to you begins in your mind. Your feelings, your decisions, your results. If you think with fear, you see problems everywhere. If you think with confidence, you see opportunities where others only see obstacles. Every thought you choose can build or destroy your day. That's why real change begins not with what you do, but with what you believe. When you transform your thoughts, you transform your inner world, and then everything around you transforms too. Think about this. Every emotion you feel comes from an idea you created. If you believe you can't, you feel weak. If you believe you can, you feel energy. The mind doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. So what you constantly think about becomes your reality. When you repeat, "This is too much for me," your body shuts down. But when you say, "I will overcome this," your nervous system gets stronger. It all starts with one thought, and that thought shapes your destiny. When life gets hard, the biggest mistake is letting your mind fill with negativity. One negative thought can poison your entire day. But if you choose to think differently, even if nothing outside changes, you've already won. If something goes wrong and you tell yourself, "This too shall pass," your mind calms down. If you repeat, "I am learning from this," you turn failure into wisdom. This is how you control your mind. You don't avoid what happens. You choose how to think about what happens. The Stoics taught that the mind is the source of all freedom. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Our life is what our thoughts make it." This reveals a deep truth. Your power isn't in the world, it's in your mind. Mental training starts with observation. Pay attention to your thoughts when you wake up. If your first thought is negative, change it right away. Instead of, "I can't take it anymore," say, "This is making me stronger." Your mind is open and receptive in that first moment. That's when you choose your filter for the day. And when you face a tense situation, pause for 10 seconds. Breathe. Then consciously choose the thought that makes you stronger. That small pause can change the entire outcome. After that 10-second pause, you label what happened. That moment of labeling is the moment of your destiny. Will you say, "This is a disaster," or "This is a solvable challenge"? Choosing this label consciously should be your new mental anchor. It's also vital to protect your mental environment. Avoid conversations, news, or people that are full of complaint, fear, or comparison. Surround yourself with content and people that inspire you. Your mind is like a garden. It grows based on the seeds you plant. Protect your garden. Don't let the weeds, negative thoughts, take root. Changing your thoughts isn't a one-day job. It's a daily practice. But every time you consciously choose a positive thought, you strengthen an invisible muscle. Your inner power. This power lets you act calmly, decide wisely, and live with joy. You'll discover that happiness doesn't come from the outside. It comes from the inner silence you create when you decide what to think. Second lesson, erasing learned emotions. Second lesson, erasing learned emotions. No harmful emotion you feel today was born with you. You weren't born with fear, anger, or guilt. You learned these emotions as a child by watching, copying, and repeating what you saw. But just as you learned them, you can unlearn them. You are not doomed to feel the same way your whole life. Every thought, every feeling, every belief can be reprogrammed if you decide. Your mind isn't a wall. It's a fertile field. What you plant today can change what you've felt for years. Negative emotions aren't your true self. They are just mental habits. You learned to get angry because you saw others do it. You learned to feel less than because people repeated it to you. But if you open up to a new way of thinking, you can break that cycle. When a new idea enters your mind, it erases the old one. A single truth is enough to set you free and make the pain disappear. For example, when you realize a rejection isn't a punishment but destiny protecting you, your mind releases years of pain in seconds. That's how powerful clarity is. Every negative emotion lives only as long as you feed it. If you observe it and pay attention to it, it grows. But if you ignore it, if you stop feeding it with thoughts, it will go away. Anger, sadness, or a grudge have no power on their own. You give them power by replaying them in your mind. The secret is to cut off their energy. It's not about fighting anger, it's about stopping thinking about it. The mind can't focus on two opposite emotions at the same time. When you shift your focus to the task in front of you or just to the world around you, weak emotions die from neglect. The Stoic philosopher Seneca taught that habits create a second nature in the mind, but no habit is too strong to be broken. The way to break habits isn't to fight them, but to replace them with new, stronger habits. Start by recognizing the emotions that don't belong to you. Maybe you carry a fear of failure you heard from your parents. Maybe it's an insecurity you learned after a disappointment. When this feeling comes up, just observe it. Tell yourself, this isn't mine, this is an old program. Then cut off its energy. If you notice your mind returning to the same pain, do a pattern-breaking action. If you're sitting, stand up, go for a walk, change the music, leave the room. Just look at the sky. Cut off that emotion with a physical action. You aren't denying what you feel. You're just putting distance between you and it. Watch it like a cloud, but refuse to be the cloud. Choose not to hold on to it. Try this for 1 week. Pick an old negative emotion and apply this process. You'll see how it weakens and dissolves. You'll feel lighter, like you've set down a heavy bag. When you unlearn the negative, you reclaim your power. You become emotionally free. Life feels lighter, clearer, and more joyful. Nothing can control you because you've learned to react from wisdom, not from pain. This is the art of the mind. Third lesson, distinguishing valuable opinions. Most people live as slaves to what others think. They limit themselves, hide, or change just to fit in. But the truth is simple. No one is thinking about you as much as you think they are. Everyone is trapped in their own world with their own fears, problems, and distractions. The driver who yells at you, the colleague who criticizes you, or the family member who doesn't support you. They are all just chasing their own reflections, not yours. Freeing yourself from the need for approval is one of the greatest freedoms. When you stop trying to please everyone, you discover an inner strength. You don't need to fit into every circle. You just need to be true to yourself and your values. True respect doesn't come from the crowd. It comes from people who live with purpose, wisdom, and discipline. These are the opinions that matter. The opinions of those who have achieved what you want to achieve. Of those who live with integrity, not just for appearances. The most common mistake is letting criticism stop you. If you do something valuable, people will question it. But true success isn't measured by external approval. It's measured by the peace you feel when you look within. If every decision you make is born from the fear of judgment, you are giving away your power. But when you act based on what is right, not what is pleasing, you reclaim your freedom. In Stoicism, Marcus Aurelius taught that the opinions of others are not reality, just an echo. Seneca said a calm mind ignores the world's noise. And Epictetus said, he who seeks approval becomes a slave. True wisdom is being guided by your own reason, not by the acceptance of others. Start building a new relationship with judgment. It's not about ignoring everyone. It's about filtering wisely. Ask yourself, is this opinion from someone I respect and admire? If the answer is no, that thought's weight disappears. If the answer is yes, then listen, learn, and grow. Not everyone deserves a voice in your head. Only those who live with integrity, effort, and wisdom deserve it. List 5 people you truly respect. These could be mentors, inspiring family, or Stoic figures. Write 3 qualities for each: strength, calmness, honesty, discipline. Every time you face a tough decision, ask, what would my role model do here? This simple question aligns your mind with excellence. When people criticize you, don't react. Smile and think to yourself, I am on my own path. Not everyone will understand your journey, and they don't have to. Your life is yours. The only approval you need is from your own conscience and from those who represent your values. Every week, reflect. Did I earn the respect of the people who matter? Did I act based on peer pressure or my principles? Adjust your actions. Polish your character. Stand firm. When you focus on the respect that matters and let go of the need to please, you become free. That insecurity disappears. You no longer need external validation because you validate yourself. This mental independence attracts true success, real relationships, and a life of peace. The day you stop trying to please and start acting with conviction, you become impossible to manipulate. Your value no longer depends on others' words but on your own actions. In a world trying to make you someone else, staying true to yourself is the greatest victory. 4th lesson, training the success mindset. A winning mindset is trained just like a muscle. This isn't about luck, it's mental training. Every thought, reaction, and choice shapes your inner strength. The difference between someone who gives up and someone who pushes forward isn't the circumstances. It's how their mind responds to the circumstances. If you think you can, you're halfway there. If you hesitate, you stop before you even start. True success begins in the mind long before it shows up in reality. A winning mindset doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It acts even when it's afraid. It gets up even when it's hurt. It focuses not on what's missing, but on what it can create. Just as an athlete trains their body, you can train your mind to move forward. If you think you can't today, remember that strength doesn't come before you act. It shows up while you act. The loser's mind is full of excuses. The winner's mind is full of reasons to continue. Winners don't deny problems. They see them as a signal for action. They don't complain about the path. They walk it. In Stoicism, Epictetus reminded us that nothing great is achieved without mental discipline. For the Stoics, directing the mind to action was the path to freedom. Every morning is a chance to shape this mindset. Start by asking, what would a successful person in my shoes do today? Then, act that way. This simple question puts you in the right frame of mind. Success isn't a reward. It's the result of thinking and acting like someone who has already achieved. The practice for this lesson is the commitment chain. Commit to one habit for 30 days, maybe exercising or reading every morning. Every day you do it, draw a big X on a calendar. Your goal is not to break the chain for 30 days. You'll see your mental strength grow along with your self-confidence. True power lies in persistence. You don't need motivation every day. You need discipline. Results come when you stop holding yourself back and just move forward with conviction. Training your mindset is preparing to win. With a faith that moves mountains and a calm focus, you will become unstoppable. No external factor can break you because you know the control is within you. And when this mindset becomes your way of life, you no longer chase success. You attract it. Victory is no longer a destination. It's your state of being. 5th lesson, transforming the inner dialogue. What you tell yourself when no one is listening has more power than any advice in the world. Your mind is always listening, and what you repeat becomes your truth. If after a mistake you say, I am a failure, you program your mind to stop. But if you say, I accept this mistake, now I look forward, you build a new version of yourself, a mind that doesn't give up, a mind that learns, a mind that rises. This is how faith is built. Not from perfection, but from the inner conversation you choose. It's not the failure that destroys you. It's the story you tell yourself about the failure. You can fall 1,000 times, but if you make each fall part of your identity, you can't get up. When you speak harshly to yourself, your mind closes. But when you speak with understanding and hope, it opens to new opportunities. Your words create emotions, and those emotions drive your actions. So, when you change your inner dialogue, you change your destiny. Stoicism views mastering this dialogue as protecting your inner citadel. Your mind is weakened more by your own harsh self-talk than by any external criticism. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul is dyed with the color of its thoughts. If your inner talk is gray, your life looks gray. This reveals a key truth. The way you talk to yourself determines the strength of your soul. Whenever your mind repeats, I can't, or this is just who I am, stop and answer, that was then, now is different. This simple change is the start of transformation. The point isn't to ignore mistakes, but to see them with wisdom. What once hurt you can now become your strength. Train not just the words, but the tone of your words. Do you speak to yourself like a mentor or a harsh judge? Speaking to yourself with hope isn't naive. It's mental training. Stand in front of the mirror, look into your eyes and say, I believe in you. It might feel strange at first, but do it every day for a week. It seems simple, but the mind responds to your voice and emotion. When you speak to yourself with belief, you awaken your own power. Observe for 1 week how this new dialogue changes your behavior. You'll see that you self-sabotage less. You'll face challenges with less fear, not because the problems are gone, but because the way you face them has changed. The inner dialogue is the bridge between doubt and faith. When you learn to speak to yourself with respect, your life becomes more orderly. You stop blaming yourself and start trusting yourself. Every word becomes a step forward. Your mind becomes your ally, not your enemy. Changing how you talk to yourself is to be reborn from within. The words you repeat today can rebuild what was broken yesterday. Speaking to yourself with faith makes you your own guide, your own teacher, and your own driving force. From that moment on, every fall is just the beginning of something greater. 6th lesson, starting the day with gratitude. The first thing you do when you wake up sets the tone for your day. If you open your eyes focusing on what's missing, your mind fills with scarcity. But if you wake up feeling grateful, everything changes. Being grateful isn't just a positive phrase. It's a mental reset that teaches you to see that what you already have is enough. Gratitude turns the ordinary into the extraordinary. It reminds you that as long as you're breathing, you have a reason to keep going. Gratitude isn't a fleeting emotion, it's a daily decision. When you train your mind to focus on the good, your energy rises and your thoughts become clear. You stop seeing problems. You start seeing paths. There's no magic here. Just attention pointed at what is already good. Most people lose their peace not because they're missing things, but because they forget to see what they have. The Stoics said happiness is desiring what you already possess. Seneca taught that those who are grateful are never poor. They knew gratitude doesn't just change your mood, it changes your life. It transforms your perspective. When you practice gratitude, you train your mind to see abundance. It's like strengthening a muscle that pushes you forward with more clarity. So how do you do this? When you wake up, before you look at your phone, take a deep breath. Say 3 specific things you're grateful for out loud, not just my health. Say, for my body that let me wake up without pain, not just my family. Say, for that nice conversation I had with my spouse last night. Specific details turn gratitude from an abstract idea into a real feeling. This small ritual is powerful. It changes your emotional frequency. You start the day with strength, not anxiety. When something bothers you during the day, find a reason to be grateful in that moment. It doesn't matter if you're stuck in traffic. Be grateful. I'm grateful to be safe in this car. Or I'm grateful I'm learning to be calm. Being grateful in the middle of chaos keeps you calm and reminds you that not everything is bad. Do this for 30 days. Notice how your mood, your outlook, and your relationships change. You'll see good things start to come more often. Not because they appeared from nowhere, but because you finally gained the ability to see them. Daily gratitude doesn't just attract abundance, it turns you into abundance. It makes you strong, confident, and at peace. Every word of thanks opens the way for more. If you want victorious days, start with gratitude. If you want abundance, live in gratitude. Everything you're looking for begins when you see what you already have. 7th lesson, believing and taking action. Everything that exists today began as an idea. Nothing happens outside of you that didn't first happen inside your mind. Life doesn't respond to your passing wishes. It responds to your deepest beliefs. What you hold on to with unwavering faith becomes your experience. That's why when you think with faith and act with certainty, the world aligns in your favor. Believing is not waiting. It is knowing, with calmness, that what you imagine already belongs to you. Your reality doesn't begin when you see it. It begins when you believe it. You must hold the vision in your mind so clearly that the universe has to respond. When you live with faith, you send out a vibration of confidence that attracts opportunities, people, and paths you didn't see before. But when you live in doubt, you close doors before you even knock. But faith is useless without action. The two must walk together. First you believe. Then you act as if it's already real. Your actions become the proof of your faith. It's acting even when logic gives you no comfort. The Stoics understood that the outer world reflects the inner world. They knew that calmness and faith are the foundation of all success. For them, this meant right thought is the beginning of right action. You decide what's valuable in your mind, and then you align all your actions with that vision. The powerful ritual for this is, act as if. Think not just of having it, but of the feeling of that achievement. Who will you be when you reach that goal? How will you walk? How will you talk? Start acting like that person now. Believe so strongly that your actions become inevitable. Walk, talk, and decide as if your goal is already a part of your reality. This consistency between thought, feeling, and action is the formula for inner power. Avoid sabotaging this vision with complaints. Every time you say, "This is hard," you move away from that vision. You create a crack in your faith. Don't feed scarcity with your words. Your mind builds itself on the evidence you give it. Talk only about what you want to create, not what you fear. Pay attention to your language because your actions will always follow it. When you reprogram your mind for certainty, life reorganizes itself to match your vision. Opportunities multiply, doors open, and doubts dissolve. Not because the outside has changed, but because you have changed on the inside. Faith is not empty hope. It is a conscious decision to trust. This is how reality is created. First, you believe it. Then, you live it. 8th lesson, developing a positive mental attitude. Your attitude is the filter you use to see the world. Through this filter, everything can be a burden or an opportunity. No matter what happens, you can always choose how you react. Life isn't about controlling every circumstance. It's about mastering your response. When your attitude is firm and focused, even the hardest moments become stepping stones. But when your mind is filled with complaints, everything outside becomes heavier. Your power lies in choosing what energy you project each day. A positive attitude doesn't mean denying problems. It means facing them from a place of calm. It's looking at the storm and saying, "I can get through this." It's knowing that every situation, no matter how hard, has something to teach you. This attitude changes your mind, your language, and your results. Positivity isn't naivety, it's emotional intelligence. Successful people aren't those who never fall. They're those who maintain their focus even when the path gets complicated. The Stoics understood that attitude is the true strength of the soul. When you choose to stay calm, no event can rule you. The practice for this lesson is the word shift. Start observing your inner dialogue. Whenever you say, "I have a problem," change it to, "I have a challenge." The word problem weighs you down. It limits you. It makes you a victim. But the word challenge pushes you. It calls on your strength. It reminds you that you can overcome. This simple practice instantly changes your focus. Always talk about solutions. Complaints feed weakness. They keep your mind in a cycle of frustration. But when you talk about the solution, you awaken your creativity and power. If something goes wrong, don't say, "I can't do this." Say, "I will find a better way." The words you choose are commands for your mind. Every sentence can open or close doors. When everything seems to be going wrong, hold your faith. It's not easy to be positive when nothing is working, but that's when it matters most. In those moments, faith is your anchor. Mentally repeat, "I am focusing on the solution," and keep moving. A mind trained in hope is stronger than any obstacle. Your attitude creates a mirror. When you choose to be optimistic, people feel it, opportunities come, and the energy around you changes. Not because life gets easier, but because you become wiser. Those who maintain a good attitude don't need luck. They create their own destiny with their mindset. Consciously choose every day how you want to feel, speak, and act. Be the kind of person who radiates confidence and calm, even in chaos. This energy will transform your life and the lives of those around you. Because when your attitude changes, everything changes with it. Ninth lesson. Overcoming obstacles by thinking strong. Everything you face outside is first won inside. The battle doesn't begin when the problem appears. It begins when your mind decides whether to give up or to rise. If you think weakly, you sink. If you think strongly, you rise. Your mind is the battlefield, and it's where your victory is shaped. Every thought is a seed that can either empower you or steal your power. When you face an obstacle, your mind might start to produce anxiety. Every moment you worry, you waste energy. Worrying solves nothing. It just replays the same negative scene in your mind. It's like walking the same rocky path until it becomes a deep groove. But you can change this path. A strong mind transforms anxiety into action. The Stoics believed mental strength isn't an accident. According to Seneca, true strength is built by facing challenges. It's not about running from a problem. It's about gaining strength by facing it. It's not about denying the problem, but about confronting it with control and calm. The most important action step here is a Stoic practice. The premeditation of evils. When anxiety grips you, stop. Calmly, just once, consider the worst-case scenario. Ask yourself, is this the worst that can happen? If it does, what is the first step I can take to deal with it? Identify that step. This shines a light of a plan into the darkness of anxiety. Once your mind gets the signal, "I can handle this," anxiety loses its power and makes way for focused action. Change the images you see in your mind. If you catch yourself imagining failure, pause. Imagine yourself solving the problem. Imagine yourself after the worst-case scenario. You, having learned and moved on. The brain doesn't know the difference between real and imagined, so train it to see resilience. Every week, acknowledge a small moment of strength. Maybe you controlled your anger, tackled a problem instead of procrastinating, or faced a fear. Recognize these small wins. They are proof of your growing mental strength. Character is built step by step, thought by thought. Over time, you'll see problems get smaller as you grow bigger. Nothing can scare you, because you will know that the true power is within you. When you think strong, your mind becomes steel, your character becomes a shield, and your life transforms into a series of victories. 10th lesson, the return of goodness. Treat others as you would like to be treated. This is one of the simplest and most powerful rules of life. It's also one of the most forgotten. How you treat people says more about you than it does about them. Every word, every gesture, every response is a direct reflection of your character. If you treat people with respect, you create respect. If you treat them with contempt, you attract the same. Everything you send out comes back to you. The energy you give to the world is the same energy the world returns to you. Kindness isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Being kind doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. It means choosing to respond with calm and dignity, even when others don't. You can't control how you're treated, but you can always control how you choose to treat others. Your strength is in that choice. Treating others well, even when no one is watching, is the surest sign of a strong mind. The Stoics understood that how we treat others depends on the nobility we build inside ourselves. Epictetus summarized this clearly. We must treat others as we would want them to treat us. This isn't a social strategy. It's the foundation of a good life. The practice for this lesson is the conscious response. When you talk to someone, even if you disagree, do it with kindness. The power of a calm voice is greater than an angry argument. Maintain your balance. Calmness in the face of provocation is a silent victory. If someone speaks to you rudely, take a breath before you answer. Don't fall into the trap of sinking to their level. Also, in a world where everyone wants to talk, listening without judgment is an act of generosity. Generosity with your words, a sincere compliment, a message of support, or a simple smile, can have a huge impact. Life has a way of returning what you give. If you give respect, you get peace. If you give understanding, you get harmony. Always remember, everything you give comes back. If you treat people with kindness, you'll attract healthy relationships, opportunities, and trust. This isn't an exchange. It's the universe responding to the vibration you send out. Treating others well doesn't mean being naive. It means acting wisely, without letting resentment stain you. It means understanding that every person is fighting an inner battle you don't see. So, instead of reacting with judgment, respond with understanding. That is true strength, maintaining kindness even when the world doesn't. Over time, you'll find that life becomes lighter. You'll gain respect, genuine friendships, and an inner peace that doesn't depend on anything external. Kindness is an echo. What you give always returns. So respect, empathy, and gratitude. Life will return it to you, multiplied. 11th lesson. Letting go of the past's burden. How many times have you caught yourself saying these phrases? If only I hadn't made that mistake. If only that person hadn't disappointed me. If only my family understood me. If only I hadn't missed that opportunity. That "if only" is an invisible chain. It binds you to a time that no longer exists. It forces you to live looking backward. It makes you carry a heavy imaginary burden that drains your energy and kills your joy today. The past has already served its purpose. The only thing left is what you do with it. If you hold on to it with resentment or regret, it becomes a chain. But if you transform it into a lesson, it turns into wings. Living in the past is like trying to drive forward while only looking in the rearview mirror. You can't build a full present, standing right in front of you, while replaying old scenes in your mind. Everything that happened had a purpose. Even if you didn't understand it then, every pain, every loss, every disappointment was a teacher in disguise. When you start to see them this way, something inside you changes. There is no longer a victim. There is wisdom. There is no longer guilt. There is a lesson, because nothing destroyed you. It only shaped you. And if you are hearing these words, it means you survived, you grew, and you learned. The Stoic philosopher Seneca thought deeply about time. He reminded us, a large part of our life is spent doing wrong, a significant part doing nothing, and almost all of it doing things other than what we should. This is a warning not to be paralyzed by past mistakes, he continued. The past has no power over us because it no longer exists. The future has not yet come. Only the present moment belongs to us. The Stoics understood that letting go of the past isn't forgetting, it's accepting. It's looking at what happened with peace and not suffering for what can't be changed. The practice for this lesson is the symbolic release ritual. First, identify your if-onlys, the regrets and resentments holding you back. Maybe, if only they hadn't betrayed me, or if only I hadn't lost that job. Just observe them, then reinterpret each one. Ask yourself, what did this pain teach me? Maybe that betrayal taught you to value yourself more. Maybe that job loss pushed you to create your own path. Maybe a love that ended gave you space to find your own strength. What hurt then can be your foundation today. Now you're ready. Write down these old pains, regrets, and resentments on a piece of paper. Write them all down. Read the paper one last time. Allow those emotions to surface. Then burn this paper in a safe place or tear it into small pieces and throw it away. As you do, say aloud, I release you. You are no longer a part of me. Feel your chest lighten. This feeling isn't just emotional, it's physical. When you release the past, your mind rests, your body relaxes, and your energy returns. From that moment on, give your full focus to today. Every morning, think of a new possibility, a small goal or a simple decision. Today I will enjoy what I have. Today I will take one step toward my goal. Today I will look forward. The past no longer defines you. The present moment is waiting. When you let go of what hurt, you make room for what will make you happy. People who cling to the past carry shadows. Those who let go walk lightly. You cannot open your hands to the future if they are still full of yesterday's broken pieces. Forgive, let go, learn, and move on. Life always rewards those who dare to release what has served its purpose. When you can say, that thing I went through might be the best thing that ever happened to me, you reclaim your power. You stop being a slave to the past and become the architect of your peace. When you let go of if only, you discover that happiness isn't in what you lost, but in what you can build today. Final word. Your mind is not a thermometer. It's a thermostat. Most people live like a thermometer. When the weather outside gets cold, criticism, failure, loss, they freeze inside. When the weather warms up, compliments, success, they feel a little better. Their lives are a constant reaction to things they can't control. But the main idea of these lessons is that you are a thermostat. A thermostat doesn't react to the weather. It sets the temperature. No matter how strong the storm is, it holds its inner state at the degree it has set. These 11 lessons have given you that control dial. You now have the power to choose inner calm, not outer chaos. If you've come this far, it says a lot about you. You didn't just listen, you tried to understand. You are committed to your growth. Congratulate yourself. Many start, but few reach this point. Remember, all these lessons are not magic formulas. They are tools. True power is in the discipline to use these tools every day. What happens to you may not change, but you are no longer the same person. Now is the time to seal this journey. This isn't an end, it's a beginning. Go to the comments one last time and write this with powerful intention. Today, I have changed my way of thinking. Write it slowly. Feel every word. This is a declaration of your new identity. Let it be the affirmation that reprograms your outlook on life. May your path be clear. Set your thermostat and keep moving forward. Thank you for watching. Imagine this. In the next few minutes, you'll discover a power so great, it will make people beg you to speak. Sounds impossible, right? But what if I told you this power isn't in what you say, but in what you don't? In today's chaotic world, we are drowning in a sea of noise where every notification screams for attention and every opinion is desperate to be heard. Patience is gone, and in this tension, even a blank look can instantly start a fight. Have you ever wondered if the most powerful people are actually the quietest ones? Remember what Seneca said, an empty barrel makes more noise than a full one. Let me share a story that will change how you think about silence forever. In a town on the edge of a vast desert lived a wise woman. Her wisdom was legendary, but she didn't share it easily. One day a young, ambitious merchant came to her, his face etched with worry. How can I earn respect? He asked. How do I make people truly value me? The wise woman was silent for a long moment, listening carefully before she calmly said, Come back at dawn. Say nothing. Just follow me. The next morning, she led him into the desert. Standing among the endless dunes, she had him watch how the wind shaped the sand, how the desert commanded respect without a single word. The desert revealed its glory in its silence. Without speaking, the wise woman had shown him the great lesson. Stillness is often stronger than movement, and silence leaves a deeper mark than words. From that day on, the merchant applied this wisdom. He no longer felt the need to constantly talk or prove himself. Through his silence, his determination, and by acting at the perfect moment, he became the most respected person in town, amazed at how changing just one thing changed everything. In this video, you'll learn how to bring the power of silence into your life. You'll discover why the most powerful people aren't the ones who react to everything, but the ones who know when to be quiet. By the end, you'll understand why the less you talk, the more people will respect you enough to listen. But before we start, this is different. These aren't just theories. These are battle-tested Stoic principles that have transformed lives for over 2,000 years. If you're ready to discover why silence is your most powerful tool, let's begin. To start, we must first understand what this power truly is. Have you ever been surrounded by so much noise you couldn't even hear yourself think? It feels like the world's noise has invaded the deepest corners of your mind. You reach a point where you need that dose of silence, just to look inside and find what you've been ignoring. Because this outside noise doesn't just blur how we see the world. It blurs how we see ourselves. We're in a constant race, running toward noise, words, and a state of being busy. But who can stop? More importantly, who dares to stop? In this chaos, where notifications demand our attention, endless conversations fill our minds, and we try to fill every gap by talking faster, we feel time slipping away. But what if silence was your most powerful tool? To understand its importance, let's stop and think about what it really means, because it's not just not talking. Silence is a space free from the noise that breaks your inner peace. It's a refuge where you can finally listen to your deepest thoughts, the ones usually drowned out by stress. In other words, silence isn't emptiness. It's an opportunity to find yourself. Throughout history, countless people have stepped away from the chaos to go on a deep journey of self-understanding. The silent retreat is an ancient and powerful tool for this, a practice that lets you step back and just observe, without the pressure to react or respond. A silent retreat is a radical act of stopping. By doing nothing, you create the space to finally start doing what truly matters. In this age of information overload, silence is a safe haven, but at first, it can feel uncomfortable, even scary. We're just so used to filling every empty space with words and sounds. In silence, there's nowhere to run. You are left alone with yourself in a real confrontation. As the Stoic philosopher Seneca said, "Stillness is the highest good." But to find it, you first have to learn to be silent. Seneca wasn't just talking about not speaking. He was talking about taking a step back to see life from a much wider perspective. This leads us to the next crucial idea: learning to listen with your soul. Have you ever noticed that when someone is talking, most of us are just focused on framing our reply instead of actually listening? It's like we're robots programmed to respond, not to understand. The act of listening has lost its meaning, replaced by a compulsive need to be the first to jump in with an opinion. Stoic philosophy, that school of thought focused on calm, thought, and self-control, teaches us something that seems simple but is incredibly hard. Do not act on impulse. This pause isn't just about controlling our own reactions. It's about fundamentally changing how we interact with others. The Stoics believed that just as our emotions need to be managed before we make a decision, our reactions must wait for the right moment. How many misunderstandings, pointless arguments, or awkward moments could we avoid if we just listened instead of speaking without thinking? This doesn't mean you become a passive audience. It's an invitation to listen with the intent to understand, not just to reply. When someone is going through a hard time, our first instinct is to offer a fix. "If I were you," or "maybe you should try." But what if all that person really needs is to know someone is willing to listen, without giving advice or rushing to solve their problem? This is the power of careful listening. You don't need to have the solution, you just need to be there. Often what people want isn't an answer but an attentive ear that won't interrupt, judge, or minimize what they're saying. If we learn to listen this way, our relationships will deepen and our interactions will become genuine. But this requires stepping out of autopilot mode. where our mind is always hunting for the next great idea or waiting for the perfect moment to interject. As the Stoics taught, true wisdom isn't in the words we say, but in the silence we create between them. Once we learn to listen, we must also learn to control our impulses. When someone makes an annoying comment or a situation gets tense, ever notice how your body has a pre-planned reaction? It happens to all of us. The real question is, did you ever stop and think about what you were really doing, or did you just get swept away? Controlling your emotions isn't learned overnight, but it is a skill you can master. As humans, we have a kind of reaction button that gets pushed by any small setback, unwanted criticism, a dirty look, or a simple misunderstanding. In those moments, our first desire is to respond defensively. But what happens when we follow these impulses? We get stuck in a vicious cycle of quick reactions that make things worse, not better. Think about a recent time you reacted without thinking, perhaps a fight with someone close or a hurtful comment at work. In the end, that quick reaction didn't help, did it? The Stoics understood this perfectly. This ancient philosophy is direct. Real power isn't reacting, it's knowing. Instead of fighting their emotions, the Stoics observed them, understood them, and then decided if they were worth acting on. Just 1 minute of thought, a strategic silence, can prevent days of regret. This creates space to think and refocus, not to punish others. Think about people who, in the middle of a conflict, stay silent and make everyone around them deeply uneasy. Their very presence says, "I'll let you talk, but I choose not to play your game." This calm shows how powerful silence can be. This conscious non-reaction isn't weakness, it's strength in disguise. At first it might feel weird, like you're losing the chance to defend yourself. But in reality, you are defending yourself in a much stronger way, with calmness, intelligence, and dignity. As Epictetus said, the real show of strength isn't in what you say, but in what you choose to keep silent about. This strength is what allows you to find calm, even in the storm. Imagine you're in a hurricane. Not a real one, but a metaphorical one, the kind that hits when everything in your life seems to be going wrong. Your family is a headache, your job is a war zone, and your friends, you're not sure if they're supporting you or just looking for a show. And there you are, trapped in this storm of emotions, thoughts, and stress, just trying to stay afloat. Now, instead of running or panicking, imagine you just stop. You take a deep breath. And instead of following the chaos, you become the center of it. I know it sounds like cheap self-help, but what if I told you there's real Stoic wisdom in this? Being calm in the middle of chaos is more than a psychological trick. It's a survival strategy. It's the strategy of stepping back, of staying quiet while everyone else shouts, of refusing to be swept up in the emotional current. This inner calm lets you make logical decisions, not impulsive ones. You've probably learned this the hard way before. Think of a tense family dinner, where everyone is defending their opinion and bringing up old fights. Voices rise, the tension is thick, and you feel that impulse to jump in, to fix it, to defend yourself. But right then, you decide to step back. You say nothing. You just breathe and observe. You see who is so upset and why. You see which emotions are doing the talking. The argument continues, but eventually everyone gets tired and silence creeps in. That's when you, calmly and clearly, say a few words that ease the tension. Suddenly, the room shifts. Everyone listens. Your voice, rising calmly from the noise, sounds like a guide. Maybe you end the argument, or maybe you give a family member the support they needed. Your silence created an island of calm, and it holds the power to solve the most complex situations. That is the power of silence. The observation before the words, the patience to wait for the right moment, and the ability to stop the chaos with one clear message. Stoic philosophy teaches us to focus on what we can control and accept what we can't. The idea is to let the emotional winds blow, but not let them drag you away. Stay at the center, because your real power is in that silence. As Marcus Aurelius said, peace isn't the absence of the storm, but the ability to stay solid in the middle of it. This solid foundation comes from the wisdom of observing. Have you ever thought that maybe you don't need to have an answer for everything? That maybe you just need to learn to be quiet? It sounds weird, because we're so used to being the star of our own movie, that the idea of just being an observer sounds boring. But how many times have your emotions boiled over just because you didn't know how to step back? In this noisy world where everyone shouts their opinion and demands quick answers, the art of quietly observing is lost. When facing a tough situation, our first instinct is to react, defend, or get involved. But Stoic wisdom invites us to do something simpler. Take a step back. The observing mind is like an audience member in a theater. It doesn't get dragged into the plot, but it understands everything better than anyone. This takes discipline. It's not easy to stay quiet when everyone around you wants you to speak. Sometimes the best move is no move at all. If you stay still, without rushing to intervene, this calm space opens a door to a deeper understanding. Instead of getting emotionally entangled in every event, imagine you're just a bridge between the outside world and your inner self. Sound like nonsense? Let me tell you, most of your problems don't come from what happens, but from how you react to it. If you get swept up in everything, you're just a pinball in a game with no rules. But if you learn to observe without judging, your mind becomes a much more powerful tool. In practice, start simple. Every time you feel a situation getting on your nerves, give yourself permission to step back. You don't need to become a monk. Just observe. What are you feeling? Why? Do you really need to react right now, or can you afford to wait? When the world is forcing you to talk and you manage to stay silent, you'll be surprised to find that others will often end up begging for your opinion. And right there, you have all the control. Not because you forced it, but because you gave yourself the space to see things differently. You'll even discover moments when silence speaks louder than words. Sometimes words are useless. You know this. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is stay silent while everything just plays out. This is interesting because we live in a society that tells us we must talk, express, and show. But what happens when you just stop? I'm not talking about awkward silences. I'm talking about the kind of silence that says more than words ever could. Those moments when silence becomes a powerful reaction, like an invisible but powerful slap. The kind you don't forget. Maybe it's happened to you. You're in an argument and you feel it heading into a tunnel with no way out. You know there's no point in talking, but the other person won't stop. And every word out of your mouth just makes it worse. So, why not step back and let the silence do the talking for you? It seems what makes people most uncomfortable is a deep, knowing silence. How can someone who stays quiet in a fight leave a deeper mark than the one who keeps shouting? In these situations, silence acts like a mirror, reflecting what the other person needs to see but refuses to accept. Think about the times you decided not to answer. How did the other person react? Often your silence tests their patience and gives them a chance to really think about what they're saying. More importantly, you realize your value isn't measured by what you say, but by what you don't say. This isn't being passive. It's about knowing when to give in and when to let silence speak more powerfully than any sentence ever could. The Stoics knew that not everything needs a reaction, and often the best reaction is no reaction, because this silence isn't empty. It's full of answers. The person who stays silent isn't weak, they are solid. In this space of silence, you won't lose your cool. You'll find yourself. The other person might not understand your silence at first, but eventually, they'll see it's far more effective than any shouting or empty words. This all points to the art of letting go. Every time you try to hold on to something or someone, does it feel like no matter how hard you try, everything just slips through your fingers? Like stress is an unstoppable wave about to crash over you? What if I told you the secret is in letting go? In taking a step back? Yeah, I know it sounds like a cheap self-help book, but hear me out. What they don't tell you is that letting go is actually the most powerful action you can take. Letting go doesn't mean giving up on your feelings or the things you love. It means understanding that the thing you love doesn't own you. It means you stop crawling after everything you think you need. Holding on is the easy part. Letting go is the hard part. But here's the trick. Letting go isn't surrender, it's liberation. When you release your grip, you gain more clarity and more control. Imagine you're in one of those endless arguments, the ones that are only about proving who's right. The impulse is to keep talking louder and louder, But what if instead you just stepped back and went silent? Not out of cowardice, but out of understanding. Stoic philosophy talks a lot about this kind of detachment, not in a spiritual, romantic way. The Stoics said that letting go is about accepting what you can't control and focusing only on what you can. Letting go isn't giving up on what you love. It's freeing yourself from the weight of expectations and anxiety that people and events create. And when you let go of those expectations, you discover an inner peace you never imagined. Of course, this doesn't happen overnight. If it were easy, we wouldn't all be searching for quick fixes online. But when you understand the power of stepping back, you realize you're not losing something. You're gaining something that no one can ever steal from you. This requires patience. How many times have you tried to push events forward in your life? We all fall into the trap of thinking that waiting is weakness, like it's wasted time. But let me tell you, what looks like a cliff of inactivity to some is an opportunity for others to observe, think, and then act. That is where the power is, in that underrated thing called patience. It's almost always the answer when you feel overwhelmed by the anxiety of needing to have it all, right now. Imagine you're in a conversation. The other person is talking, but you're not really listening because you're just waiting for your turn to answer, anxious to share your opinion. What happens? The dialogue moves too fast, you miss important details, and you end up saying things you'd never say if you were calm. Now, what if you did the opposite? What if you stepped back, stayed silent for a moment, and didn't rush? Suddenly, what seemed like a simple answer transforms into a deep thought. This principle is as old as time. The Stoics understood the power of waiting perfectly. For them, patience wasn't just enduring. It was a form of wisdom. It was a method for thinking before acting. As Epictetus said, what's important isn't our reaction, but our response. Modern life pressures us to move fast, make split-second decisions, and never waste time. But in reality, true power isn't in quick answers. It's in wise responses. And that wisdom, in many cases, comes from pausing and observing the landscape instead of rushing through it. I'm not telling you to become a hermit who waits forever. I'm telling you to understand that real power often lies in not rushing and letting things unfold. Take a step back. Be silent. And you'll see how sometimes they will beg you to intervene. The power of patience isn't just a philosophical idea. It's a practical, powerful tool we can all use every day. As Nelson Mandela said, waiting is not the absence of action, but the anticipation of what's to come. All of this culminates in the peace of acceptance. Have you ever felt stuck, not knowing whether to curse your luck or just hide under the covers? That intense frustration when you realize something you're trying so hard to change is still just out of reach. It feels like the world is determined to block you, just to show you how unfair it is. But what if the deepest change isn't in what you can control, but in how you decide to see the things you can't? This is acceptance. That simple concept that seems so hard to practice. The truth is, accepting what we can't change isn't giving up. It's stepping into a calm space where we can see with total clarity. Add a little Stoic philosophy to this, and you have a powerful ally. This isn't about surrendering to everything. It's about understanding that some things are simply not in your hands. The Stoics argued that we can't change what's outside our control, but we can always control how we respond. The key is that non-judgmental view, observing events without rushing to label them good or bad. Acceptance lets us witness what's happening without our emotions taking over. It's an invitation to be wiser, to see the bigger picture, and to not get trapped in the small drama of the moment. How do we practice this? First, by remembering that not everything needs to be fixed or solved right now. Give yourself permission to accept what is, and free yourself from the burden of controlling every detail. Second, by allowing that inner silence, which over time becomes more powerful than any defense. And finally, by being patient, because deep change never happens overnight. As the ancient sages said, peace isn't found by changing the world, but by changing how you see it. If you've made it this far, write "you are more valuable for your silence" in the comments. Because silence isn't just an action, it's a posture. When you stay silent, your thoughts speak, not just your words. It makes you a more understanding, deep, and effective person. This comment shows you are part of a community that gets the power of silence and helps this message reach more people. Discovering this power means not just watching, but changing. Share what you learned from this video or how silence has impacted your own life in the comments below. To continue this philosophical journey, subscribe and turn on notifications. Your support is my biggest motivation. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. And remember, silence often says more than the most powerful words. Just imagine this. What if I told you about a power so great that after you learn it, people will literally beg you to speak? Sounds impossible, right? Well, what if I told you this superpower isn't about talking more, but just the opposite? Knowing when to be silent. Look at the world we live in today. It's complete chaos. We are drowning in noise. Every notification on your phone screams, "Look at me." Everyone is scrambling to make their opinion heard. Patience is gone. Even a simple glance can instantly turn into a massive fight. And it's not just phone notifications. It's the mindless scrolling through stories until our thumbs are numb. The endless Zoom meetings, the horns in traffic. Our minds are constantly full. They're never empty. So, have you ever stopped to think? Maybe the most powerful people aren't the loudest ones, but the ones who can remain silent. The famous Stoic philosopher Seneca had a great saying, "Empty vessels make the most noise." Now let me share a story with you that will change how you think about silence forever. On the edge of a vast desert, in a small town, lived a wise woman. Her wisdom was famous, but she didn't share it easily. One day, the town's ambitious young merchant came to her. You could see the anxiety on his face. "How can I earn respect?" he asked. "How do I get people to truly value me?" The wise woman stayed silent for a moment. She listened, studying him. Then she calmly said, "Come back tomorrow at dawn, and say nothing. Just follow me." The next morning, the wise woman took the merchant into the desert. She had him stand in the middle of the endless sand and just watch how the wind silently shaped the dunes. She showed him how the desert commanded respect without saying a single word. The desert, in its magnificent silence, displayed all its power. The wise woman didn't say a thing, but she taught the merchant a powerful lesson right before his eyes. Stillness is sometimes more powerful than movement. Silence sometimes leaves a deeper mark than words. From that day on, the merchant never forgot this lesson. He stopped trying to constantly talk and prove himself. With his silence, his steady presence, and his ability to act at the right moment, he became the most respected person in town. He watched in amazement as changing just one thing changed his entire life. In today's video, you will learn how to bring this power of silence into your life, just like that merchant. In the next 9 lessons, you'll discover why the most powerful people aren't the ones who react to everything, but the ones who know when to be quiet. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why sometimes the less you say, the more people line up to hear you. But before we begin, this is different from what you've heard before. These aren't empty motivation slogans or theories. These are 2,000-year-old battle-tested Stoic principles that have transformed lives. If you're ready to discover why silence might be your most powerful weapon, let's begin. The power of silence. So, have you ever felt like this? Your surroundings are so noisy you can't even hear your own thoughts. It's like the constant noise from the outside world has invaded the deepest corners of your brain. At a certain point, you just need to stop, look inside, and discover the things you've been ignoring. The noise out there doesn't just cloud our view of the world, it clouds our view of ourselves. We're in a constant race, a state of constant busyness. Everyone is trying to say something. But in this race, who can stop? More importantly, who dares to stop? Notifications pour in, endless chatter fills our minds, and we try to fill every gap by talking faster. But what if silence is the most powerful tool you have? To understand the importance of silence, let's pause. What is silence? It's not just not talking. Silence is a space where the noise inside you stops. It's a safe harbor where you can listen to your deepest thoughts, the ones usually drowned out by daily stress. So silence isn't an emptiness. It's an opportunity to discover yourself. People have done this throughout history. They stepped away from the chaos of the world to go on deep journeys of self-understanding. There's an ancient and effective method called a silent retreat. This practice allows a person to step back and just observe, without the pressure to respond or react. Even today, CEOs in Silicon Valley attend 10-day silent retreats, like Vipassana, to make better decisions. Why? Because noise kills creativity, but silence feeds it. A silent retreat is a radical act of stopping. By stopping and doing nothing, you finally create the space to start doing the things that truly matter. In this age of information overload and endless noise, silence is a sanctuary. But let's admit it, at first it can feel uncomfortable, even scary. We are so used to filling every void with words, ideas, and sounds. In silence, there's nowhere to run. You are left alone with yourself. You come face to face with the real you. When we're silent, the fears, anxieties, and regrets we've suppressed come to the surface. And to escape them, we immediately grab our phones or turn on the TV. The Stoics say, don't run, stop, and listen, because what you hear in that silence, that is your true self. As the great Stoic master Seneca said, tranquility is the highest good. But to find this good, you must first learn to be silent. And Seneca wasn't just talking about shutting your mouth. He was talking about stepping back so you can see life from a wider perspective. Listening with the soul. Have you ever noticed that when someone is talking, instead of actually listening to them, you're just planning what you're going to say next? It's like we're programmed not to understand, but to wait for our turn to deliver the best reply. The act of listening, unfortunately, has lost its soul. We don't listen anymore. Instead, there's a race to be the first one to jump in, the first to have an opinion, the first to fix the problem. This is where Stoic philosophy, that ancient school of wisdom, teaches us something that sounds simple but is incredibly hard to do. Don't act on impulse. This skill of pausing isn't just about controlling our own reactions. It's about how we connect with others. The Stoics believe that just as our emotions need to settle before we make a decision, our responses need to wait for the right moment. Think about it. How many misunderstandings, pointless arguments, or awkward moments could we have avoided if we just truly listened instead of speaking without thinking? This doesn't mean be a passive bystander. It's an invitation to stop listening to reply and start listening to understand. When a friend comes to you going through a hard time, what's our first instinct? To give advice. I think you should do this. If I were you. But what if, in that moment, your friend's only need wasn't for advice but for an ear? Someone who would listen without judging, without interrupting, and without minimizing their problem. This is the power of true listening. You don't need to have the solution. You just need to be there. Often, that's all people want. There's a practical way to do this. I call it the echo technique. When the person finishes talking, pause. Instead of giving advice, say, "So if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying you feel undervalued at work. Is that right?" This simple sentence makes the other person feel heard and buys you time to think. When was the last time you listened to someone, really listened, to hear the emotion behind their words, not just to wait for your turn? If we learn to listen this way, our relationships become deeper, our connections more genuine, but it requires us to get off that autopilot mode where our brain is always searching for the next great idea or waiting for the perfect moment to jump in. As the Stoics said, true wisdom is not found in the words we speak, but in the silent understanding we can create between them. The courage to not react. When someone insults you, makes a disturbing comment, or the tension in the room suddenly spikes, do you notice how your body instantly goes on high alert? Of course you do. It happens to all of us. The real question is, in that moment, did you stop and think, what am I doing right now? Or did you go on autopilot and react immediately? Controlling your emotions isn't something you learn overnight. It's a skill mastered over time. In our most impulsive state, we all have a reaction button, an unwanted criticism, a dirty look, or a simple misunderstanding. The moment someone pushes that button, our first instinct is to defend ourselves. These buttons are often tied to our ego. We don't react because someone called us incompetent. We react because we already fear that we are inadequate. A Stoic, when that button is pushed, stops. Instead of reacting, they ask, does this comment reflect a truth I control, or just someone else's opinion? So what happens when we give in to this impulse? Usually we get stuck in a vicious cycle of quick reactions that, instead of solving anything, just add fuel to the fire. Think of a recent time this happened. Maybe you said something in an argument you later regretted. Did that quick reaction, that defensive comeback, actually help you? Probably not. The Stoics understood this perfectly. This ancient philosophy doesn't mince words. True power isn't reacting, it's responding wisely. The Stoics didn't fight their emotions. They observed them, understood them, and then decided if they were worth acting on. Just 1 minute of thinking can save you from days of regret. Let's call this strategic silence. This isn't the silent treatment to punish others. It's giving yourself space to think and refocus. Think about the people who can stay quiet in the middle of a heated argument, who just by being calm, change the entire energy of the room. Their calm presence is like it's saying, I'll let you scream, but I will not join your game. This kind of tranquility shows just how powerful a stance silence can be. This conscious non-reaction is not weakness, it is strength in disguise. At first, it might feel strange, like you're missing your chance to defend yourself, but in reality, you are defending yourself in a much more powerful way, with calm, with intelligence, and above all, with dignity. As Epictetus said, the true show of power is not in what you say, but in what you choose to keep silent. Choosing to be silent means, my dignity is far beyond your insult. They can't drag you into a fight because you're not fighting on that level. Calm in the storm. Imagine you're in the middle of a hurricane. Not a real one, of course, but a metaphorical hurricane. Those moments in life when everything seems to be going wrong. You're fighting with your family. Your job feels like a war zone, and you're not even sure if your friends are supporting you or just looking for drama. And there you are, trapped in the middle of this storm of emotions, thoughts, and stress. Now, instead of running or panicking, imagine you just stop for a moment. You take a deep breath, and instead of following the chaos, you become the center of all that chaos. I know it sounds like a cheap self-help slogan, but what if I told you there's real wisdom in this, something the Stoics knew and practiced for thousands of years? Staying calm in the middle of chaos is more than a psychological trick. It's a survival strategy. It's the strategy of staying silent when everyone else is shouting, of refusing to get swept up in the emotional current. It's that inner peace that allows you to make logical decisions and not act on impulse. You've probably learned this the hard way. Think of a simple example. A tense family dinner. Everyone is defending their own opinion, bringing up old arguments, and voices are rising. The air is thick with tension. In that moment, you feel an incredible urge to say something, to correct someone, or to get defensive. But right then, you stop. You decide to pull back. You say nothing. You just take a deep breath and silently start to observe. You notice why someone is so upset, what emotions are really doing the talking. The argument continues for a while, but eventually everyone gets tired. A silence starts to creep in, and in that moment, you speak. Calmly and clearly, you say a few words that diffuse the situation. Suddenly, the mood shifts. Everyone is listening to you. Your voice in the middle of all that shouting is heard like a guide. Maybe what you say ends the argument, or maybe it gives a family member the emotional support they needed. The same goes for the workplace. In a crisis where everyone is panicking and blaming each other, the person who can calmly stand up and say, "Okay, what's done is done. Here are our options," that is the most powerful person in the room. Leadership isn't about shouting, it's about bringing clarity to chaos. Your silence created an island of calm. That is the power of silence. The observation that comes before words, the patience to wait for the right moment, and the ability to stop the chaos with one effective message. Stoic philosophy teaches us to focus on what we can control and accept what we cannot. The idea here is to let the emotional winds blow hard, but not let them uproot you. Stay in the center, because your true strength lies in this silence. As Marcus Aurelius said, tranquility is not the absence of the storm, but the ability to stand firm within it. The wisdom of observation. Have you ever considered that maybe what you need isn't to have an answer for everything, but to learn to be silent and observe? Yeah, it sounds strange. We're so used to being the star of our own life's movie that the idea of being an observer sounds boring. But think about it. How many times have your emotions taken over, simply because you didn't know how to step back? In this noisy world where everyone is shouting their opinion and demanding instant answers, the art of silent observation has been lost. When we face a tough situation, our first instinct is to react, to defend, to get involved. But Stoic wisdom invites us to do something much simpler. Take a step back. The observant mind is like an audience member in a theater. It doesn't let the plot drag it onto the stage, but by sitting back, it understands the play better than anyone. From the audience, you can see the performance of the actors, your emotions, better. You understand why anger just stormed on stage, why anxiety forgot its lines, and why fear is hiding from the spotlight. When you're playing the lead role, you just experience the chaos. From the audience, you understand the play. This approach requires great discipline. It's not easy to stay quiet when everyone around you expects you to say something. Sometimes the best move is to not move a muscle. If you stay still, without rushing, without interfering, this calm space opens a door to a deeper understanding of what's happening around you. Instead of emotionally sticking to every event or conversation, imagine you are a bridge between the outside world and your inner calm. Let me tell you a secret. Most of your problems don't come from what happens to you, but from how you react to what happens. If you get swept away by everything that affects you, you're like a ping-pong ball in a game with no rules. When you react, you are the ball. But when you observe, you are the paddle. You decide when to speed up the game and when to slow it down. But if you can manage to observe without judging, your mind becomes a much more powerful tool. How do we do this? Start simple. The next time you feel a situation getting on your nerves, give yourself permission to take one step back. You don't need to do anything extraordinary. Just observe. What are you feeling? Why are you feeling it? Is it really necessary to react right now, or can you afford to wait? You will be amazed to see that when the world tries to force you to speak, and you manage to stay silent, soon others will be begging to hear your opinion. Because you are in control. Not because you forced your will, but because you gave yourself the chance to see things from another perspective. When silence speaks louder. Sometimes, words are unnecessary. You know this. You know that sometimes the smartest thing you can do is to just stay silent while everything around you spins in its own chaos. This is an interesting one, because we live in a society that constantly tells us to speak up, express yourself, show us. But what happens when you just stop? I'm not talking about an awkward silence. I'm talking about that deep silence that somehow says more than words ever could. Those moments when silence becomes a response so powerful, it's like an invisible but powerful slap, more effective than the loudest shout. Maybe this has happened to you. You're in the middle of a discussion, and you feel it heading down a dead-end tunnel. You know there's no point in continuing to talk, but the other person just won't stop. And worse, every new word out of your mouth just makes things worse. So right in that moment, why not step back and let the silence do the talking for you? It seems that this deep silence is what makes people most uncomfortable. How is it possible that in the middle of a confrontation, the person who stays silent leaves a deeper mark than the one who keeps fighting? Because in these situations, silence acts as a mirror. It reflects back to the other person the very thing they need to see, but don't want to accept. Think about a time you decided to simply not respond. How did the other person react? Often, that silence tests their patience. It gives them a chance to think, what am I actually saying right now? For example, imagine a manager yelling at you unfairly at work. If you yell back, "You always do this to me," the fight just gets bigger and you've lowered yourself to their level. But instead you say nothing. You just look at them calmly but seriously. After a few moments, they will hear their own voice echoing in the space. How inappropriate and exaggerated it sounds. They might even feel ashamed. Your silence becomes a mirror, showing them how unacceptable their behavior is. More importantly, it's the realization that your value is measured not just by what you say, but by what you don't say. This isn't about being passive or a doormat. It's about knowing when to stand down and when to let your silence speak more powerfully than any sentence you could craft. The Stoics know. Not everything deserves a reaction, and often, the best reaction is no reaction at all. Because silence is not empty, it is full of answers. The person who stays silent isn't weak, they are solid. In that space of silence, instead of losing your cool, you find yourself. The other person might not understand your silence at first, but eventually, they will see that it was more effective than any shout. The art of letting go. Think about those times you've tried to desperately hold on to something, or someone. The harder you grip, the more it feels like everything is slipping through your fingers. Stress washes over you like an unstoppable wave. But what if I told you the secret isn't in holding on, but in letting go? I know it sounds like another popular self-help cliche, but hear me out. Letting go is one of the most powerful actions you can take. And by letting go, I don't mean your feelings end or that you give up on the people you love. No. Letting go is the act of understanding that the things you love do not own you. It's about abandoning the chase for everything you think you need. Of course, holding on is the easy part. Letting go is the hard part. But here's the trick. Letting go is not a loss. It's a liberation. The moment you stop clinging, you gain more clarity and more control. Imagine you're in one of those endless arguments. You know the ones. The pointless fights that are only about proving who is right. Your first impulse is to keep talking louder, to add more evidence. But what if instead you stepped back and went silent? Not out of cowardice, but out of understanding. Stoic philosophy talks a lot about this kind of detachment, not in a spiritual, mystical way, but in a practical one. What they're saying is this: letting go is about accepting the things you cannot control and focusing your energy on the things you can control. What should we let go of? Other people's opinions of us. We can't control them. The mistakes we made in the past, we can't control them. The traffic, the economy, whether it will rain tomorrow, we can't control them. What should we focus our energy on? Our own reactions, our own integrity, the choices we make today. Letting go isn't giving up on what you love. It's freeing yourself from the weight of expectations and anxiety that people and events can create. This is like a massive weight being lifted from your shoulders. It's the moment you put down the burdens you were never meant to carry. And if you let go of those expectations, you will discover an inner peace you couldn't imagine. Of course, this doesn't happen overnight. If it were easy, we wouldn't all be searching for quick fixes online. But when you understand the power of stepping back, you realize you're not losing anything. You're actually gaining the one thing no one can ever take from you: your own peace of mind. Transformative patience. How many times in your life have you wanted to force things to happen faster? We all fall into that trap. We think that waiting is the same as being passive, that it's a moment wasted. But let me tell you something. What looks like inaction to many is, for others, an opportunity to observe, think, and act better. This is where true power comes from that underrated virtue, patience. When you feel overwhelmed by the anxiety to have everything right now, the answer is usually patience. Imagine you're in a conversation, the other person is talking, but you're not really listening. You're just waiting for your turn to respond. You're anxious to share your opinion. So what happens? The dialogue moves too fast, you miss important details, and in the end, you say things you would never say if you were calm. Now imagine the opposite. What if you step back, stay silent for a moment, and don't rush. Suddenly, what seemed like a simple answer transforms into a deep thought. This principle is as old as time. The Stoics, for example, understood the power of waiting perfectly. For them, patience wasn't just enduring or surviving. Patience was a form of wisdom. It was a method for thinking before acting. A farmer plants a seed and then waits. They don't dig up the soil every day asking, "Has it grown yet?" Because they know some things can't be forced. They must mature. Patience is waiting wisely. It's allowing the sun, the water, and time to do their work. As Epictetus said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Modern life is filled with pressure to move fast, to make decisions in the blink of an eye, to not waste time. But the truth is, real strength isn't in the speed of your reply, but in the wisdom of your response. And that wise response, in most cases, develops when you stop rushing and just observe the landscape. I'm not telling you to become a hermit and wait forever. But I want you to understand that often, true power lies in not rushing, in letting things unfold naturally. Step back, be silent, and you will see how sometimes people will beg you to intervene. The power of patience and waiting isn't just a philosophical concept, it is a practical and powerful tool we can all use in our daily lives. As Nelson Mandela said, "Waiting is not the absence of action but the anticipation of what is to come." In other words, waiting isn't sitting around doing nothing. It's preparing for the right moment. The peace of acceptance. Have you ever had those moments where you just don't know what to do? That intense frustration when you realize that something you're trying to change with all your might is still completely out of your control? It feels like the world is intentionally putting obstacles in your way just to show you how unfair it is. But what if I told you that the deepest change doesn't come from trying to control what's outside you, but from changing how you look at the things you cannot change? I offer you acceptance. That simple concept that always seems so complicated to practice. The truth is, accepting the things we cannot change is not surrender or giving up. It is, in fact, stepping into a calm space where we can see with greater clarity. Add a little Stoic philosophy to this mix, and you've found a powerful ally. This philosophy doesn't ask you to give up. It just asks you to understand that some things are not in your hands. The Stoics argued that we cannot change what is outside our control, but we can always control how we respond to it. The key is that non-judgmental view, the one that observes what happens without rushing to label it good or bad. Acceptance allows us to witness what's happening without letting our emotions take complete control. It's an invitation to be wiser, to see the bigger picture, instead of getting caught in the small dramas of the moment. So, how do we practice acceptance? First, by remembering that not everything needs to be fixed, solved, or changed right now. By giving yourself permission to accept what is, you free yourself from the burden of trying to control every single detail. Second, by allowing for that inner silence, which, over time, becomes a tool more powerful than any defensive strategy. And finally, by being patient. Because profound change never happens overnight. For example, Seneca at the end of each day would ask himself, "What weakness did I heal today? What fault did I stand against? In what way am I a better person?" This practice is accepting what happened, but learning from it to be better tomorrow. You see, acceptance isn't passivity, it's a clear-eyed assessment. As the ancient sages said, peace is found not by changing the world, but by changing your view of it. If you've made it this far, write, "You are more valuable for your silence" in the comments. Because silence is not just an action, it's a posture. When you are silent, your thoughts speak instead of your words. This makes you a more understanding, deeper, and more effective individual. This comment will show that you are part of a community that understands the power of silence and will help this message reach more people. To discover the power of silence is not just to watch, but to bring a change into your life. Let's deepen these ideas by sharing what you've learned from this video or the effects of silence in your own life in the comments. Continue to join us on this philosophical journey by subscribing to our channel and activating the notifications. Your support is my biggest motivation for creating this content. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. And remember, silence sometimes says more than the most powerful words. Hey everyone, you know that one person? The one who just loves to push your buttons? That coworker, that family member, maybe even a friend who just drains your energy? The one who always knows exactly what to say to make you see red? What is the ultimate comeback? What's the best revenge? Today, I'm giving you a secret that's thousands of years old, straight from the Stoics. The best revenge is to not be like your enemy. This is such a powerful lesson. It reminds us that most of the time, when people try to hurt us, they are doing it for one reason: to get a reaction. They want you to lose control. They want you to get angry. They want you to sink right down to their level. But what if you chose a smarter path? Think of a master martial artist. They don't just swing back wildly at every punch. They stay centered. They observe. They choose their response wisely. They know the fight isn't won by throwing the most punches, but by maintaining their balance and frustrating their opponent with their calm. This is exactly how it works in daily life. When someone attacks you and you give that attack zero importance, when you refuse to take the bait, the attacker is left standing there, completely confused. They realize all their effort was for nothing. This is the core of Stoicism. Focus on what you can control, your reactions, your attitude, and let go of what you can't control, like what other people say or do. In this video, we're diving deep into practical Stoic-based ways to respond to the people who try to bring you down. Get ready to transform how you deal with negativity. By using these techniques, you won't just frustrate your haters. You'll actually build a stronger version of yourself with every challenge you overcome. Forget petty revenge. This video offers something way more satisfying: becoming the person they wish they could be. If you're ready, let's get into it. Part 1. The power of non-reaction. The passive defense. What's the most powerful response you can give to someone who's being awful? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. That's our first strategy. Ignore them and don't react. When you choose not to respond to a provocation, you completely disarm the attacker. You're sending a clear message. Your negativity has no power here. Your drama doesn't get to live in my head. Ignoring someone who's trying to hurt you is so effective because that person is looking for a reaction. They crave it. They want to see that they got to you. When you don't give them that satisfaction, you take all that power back and you keep your dignity. This lines up perfectly with that core Stoic principle. Focus on your circle of control. You cannot control what other people do. You can't control what they say. But you can always control how you respond. Ignoring them is a choice. It's the cleanest way to protect your own peace of mind. Instead of escalating the situation, getting into a fight, and creating more drama, you're choosing to save your energy for what actually matters. What matters? Your happiness, your well-being, your personal growth. This silent victory speaks volumes more about your strength than any angry comeback ever could. Okay, but what if you can't just ignore them? What if you're stuck in the same room? This brings us to strategy number 2. Kill 'em with kindness. This might be one of the most effective social jujitsu moves ever. Treating someone who's cruel with kindness doesn't just confuse them. It actually neutralizes the attack. When you choose kindness, you're showing massive emotional maturity. You're proving that you operate on a higher frequency, above the petty negativity. When someone throws mud at you and you offer them a flower, they just don't know what to do. Think about it. They are expecting a fight. They're braced for you to get angry or defensive. But when you respond with genuine kindness, you break that negative cycle. Honestly, this can sometimes even make the other person pause and reflect on their own behavior. And kindness has an amazing effect on you. Choosing to be kind even when you're hurt builds your inner peace and self-respect. You prove to yourself, no matter what storms are raging outside, I am in control of my own weather. But let's be 100% clear on this. Responding with kindness does not mean being a doormat. It is not about letting people walk all over you. It's simply a choice not to fuel the conflict. You can be firm and kind at the same time. You can make it clear that you won't tolerate disrespect, but you're choosing not to respond with aggression. And that leads to the final part of our passive defense. Avoid unnecessary confrontations. Sometimes, the wisest, most courageous move is to simply walk away from a fight. This is a sign of wisdom and massive self-control. Let's be real. Some people just want to fight. Some arguments have no winner. In many cases, insisting on a confrontation just makes things worse. It doesn't bring a positive solution. It just jacks up your stress levels and fuels more negativity. By choosing to disengage from a potential conflict, you are prioritizing your own inner peace and emotional health. This isn't about admitting you're wrong or giving in to their bad behavior. Not at all. It means, I am choosing not to feed this monster. I am saving my energy for the battles that actually matter. Ask yourself this one question. Will confronting this person actually solve anything? Or am I just reacting because my ego is bruised? Most of the time, when you really think about it, you'll realize the best response is to just let it go and not engage. The Stoics teach us to focus on what we can control, our own actions. When you walk away from a pointless fight, you're demonstrating incredible emotional maturity. This doesn't just protect your peace, it also disarms the person who was expecting an aggressive reaction. By bowing out gracefully, you keep your integrity and show the world that you cannot be easily shaken. Part 2. Protect your space, the active strategies. Okay, so we've ignored them, we've been kind, we've walked away from pointless fights. But sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes the passive defense doesn't work. Sometimes you have to actively do something to make the behavior stop. This section is all about protecting your space. And the first, most important active strategy is set clear boundaries. Communicating your boundaries with a firm voice is how you show the world you will not tolerate disrespect. It's how you show yourself that you value your own emotional well-being. Setting a boundary is an act of self-respect. It's the most effective way to protect yourself from harmful behavior. When you set a boundary, you are clearly informing the other person what is and what is not acceptable in your relationship. You're drawing a line in the sand. This helps prevent future pain by being crystal clear about what you won't put up with. For example, if someone constantly makes belittling comments about you, you need to stop them. Calmly but firmly you say, I am not going to be spoken to that way. See? You don't have to be rude or aggressive. You can be assertive without losing your cool. A great formula is, when you do X, it makes me feel Y and I need you to stop. That is clear, direct, and unassailable. Besides protecting your mental health, clear boundaries teach people how to treat you. Often people will push and push until they hit a wall. You have to be the wall. When you are consistent and firm about your boundaries, you send a serious message. I mean it. You cannot treat me this way. Okay, but what if you set boundaries and they still cross them? Now we move to the next level. Seek justice, not revenge. When someone hurts you, your gut instinct might be revenge. I'm going to get them back. But just pause. There is a much more powerful and constructive path. Seeking justice. Instead of taking matters into your own hands, which just pulls you into the mud with them, choosing to resolve the situation through fair and lawful means shows maturity and respects the rule of law. What does seeking justice mean? It means using the proper channels to resolve the problem. Depending on how serious it is, this could mean filing a formal complaint, seeking mediation, or consulting a lawyer. This path doesn't just offer an impartial solution, it also protects you from the negative consequences of a personal vendetta. Revenge makes you part of the dirty game. Justice lifts you above it. For example, if you're being slandered at work, don't get into a shouting match in the hallway. That's what they want. Instead, document everything. Take your evidence to HR. If you have to, take it to the legal system. This not only protects your integrity, but ensures there are appropriate policy-based consequences for the attacker. Choosing justice over revenge is perfectly aligned with the Stoic principles of reason and self-control. The Stoics teach us to act from a place of logic and virtue, not destructive emotions like rage or vengeance. Seeking justice is an act of discipline and wisdom. And now for one of the most creative active strategies and one of my personal favorites, respond with humor. This is such a brilliant way to diffuse tension. It shows that you don't take the attack seriously and that you are not easily rattled. Humor has the power to change the entire dynamic of an interaction. It can turn a tense confrontation into something manageable, even light. When you respond with humor, you break the negative loop they're trying to create. They're expecting anger, sadness, or defensiveness. By giving them a witty or humorous response, you completely confuse them and neutralize the impact of their insult. This can even make the person reflect on their own actions and realize how ridiculous their attempt to hurt you was. Plus, using humor shows a high level of emotional intelligence. It means you're in control of your emotions and can choose a response that not only protects your own peace, but also brilliantly diffuses a hostile situation. For example, someone makes a nasty comment about you. Imagine just smiling and saying, "Wow, that's a fascinating perspective. I'll be sure to write that down and discuss it with my therapist at our next session." Boom. Instantly, you've shown you're not taking the insult seriously. This move not only protects your self-confidence, but also shows you have enough security to handle difficult situations with grace and a little bit of flair. Part 3. Build your inner strength, the internal work. In the first 2 parts, we talked about how to defend ourselves from external attacks. Now we get to the most important part, the true heart of the Stoic philosophy. This part isn't about them at all. It's 100% about you. It's about how we become stronger, more resilient, and wiser. Our first step, focus on solutions, not problems. One of the most effective ways to respond to people who hurt you is to stop ruminating on the offense. Stop replaying it in your head, "I can't believe they said that." Instead, pivot the conversation, both internal and external, to practical solutions. When you focus on solutions, you escape that negative spiral of anger and resentment. You're proactively working to solve the situation. It's natural to feel frustrated and want to rehash the problem. We all do it. But obsessing over the problem just amplifies the negative emotions and prevents any real progress. Instead, try to understand the root of the issue and ask, "Okay, so how do we fix this?" This turns a negative experience into an opportunity for growth and learning. For example, a coworker made an aggressive comment. Instead of dwelling on it for days, you can approach it by asking, "How can we improve our communication to avoid misunderstandings in the future?" Or, "What can we do to make sure this doesn't happen again?" This kind of approach doesn't just show maturity, it shows you're committed to creating a more harmonious environment. This is a proactive mindset, not a reactive one. And this leads us straight to the next step. Develop your resilience. Resilience isn't about never getting knocked down. Resilience is about how fast you get back up. To build this vital skill, you have to practice self-reflection. Take time to think about your experiences. Ask yourself, why did that situation affect me so much? Understanding your triggers helps you develop more effective coping mechanisms. Also, try to see challenges as opportunities for growth, not just as setbacks. This mindset strengthens your ability to handle future problems. Your support system is also crucial. Friends, family, or a professional therapist, talk to people you trust. It helps you process your emotions and find solutions. And don't neglect the fundamentals of your physical and mental health. Exercise, good nutrition, quality sleep. These aren't luxuries, they are essential for maintaining your mental armor. Activities like meditation and mindfulness can reduce stress and increase mental clarity. The Stoic view is all about accepting what we can't change, someone was rude to us, and focusing on controlling our response, how we handle it. Building resilience is how you put that philosophy into practice. When you're resilient, attacks from the outside lose their power to deeply affect you. And finally, the most powerful strategy of all, constantly improve yourself. Working to improve your skills and abilities is the ultimate way to show that you are unfazed by the actions or words of others. When you channel your energy into personal growth, whether it's education, learning new skills, or new hobbies, you're building a stronger, more confident version of yourself. This focus turns your hurt into motivation. It transforms a negative experience into a catalyst for growth. By focusing on your own self-improvement, you're showing that you won't let anyone else's negativity define who you are. You're creating a sense of purpose that rises above their attempts to pull you down. This is, in itself, the most elegant form of revenge. For example, someone criticizes your professional skills. Instead of feeling defeated, go invest in courses or workshops that will make you an expert in that area. By reaching new levels of achievement, you prove to yourself and everyone else that you can overcome challenges and emerge even stronger. And the summary of all these points, our final principle: think before you act. Pausing for just a moment before you react prevents those impulsive, emotional responses that almost always make things worse. This pause encourages calmness and rationality, allowing you to choose the best course of action based on logic, not just raw emotion. When someone hurts you, your gut reaction is instant: anger, frustration, sadness. But these impulsive reactions often lead to bigger conflicts. By pausing to think, you give yourself a chance to assess the situation more clearly. Before you respond, ask yourself these questions. What is the purpose of my response? Will this solve the problem, or will it just escalate the conflict? How can I express my feelings in a way that promotes a solution, instead of creating more problems? These questions help you frame your response constructively. The Stoics teach us the importance of maintaining tranquility and emotional control. Thinking before you decide is how you practice that philosophy. It's how you take your power back, preventing your in-the-moment emotions from running the show. And that's a wrap for this one, everyone. I truly hope these Stoic strategies and principles help you navigate difficult situations and difficult people. Remember, the greatest power isn't in controlling others, it's in mastering yourself. So what about you? How do you deal with these kinds of situations? What are your go-to strategies? Drop a comment down below. I read them all, and I'd love to learn from you too. Thanks so much for watching. Please remember to subscribe, like, and share with your loved ones. I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Hey there. If you clicked on this video, chances are you're feeling a bit off. Maybe a little sad. Maybe a little lost. Maybe you were scrolling through Instagram and thought, wow, everyone has such amazing lives, and then there's me. If that's you, you're in the right place. And trust me, you landing on this video is no accident. I just need about 15 minutes of your time. I promise by the time this video is over, you'll feel that weight on your shoulders get just a little bit lighter. What you're about to hear might just change how you see yourself permanently. You ready? Now I want you to imagine something. It's early morning. The sun is just coming up. There's an old wise man. Like he does every morning, he's walked deep into the forest to think. He's settled under the shade of a huge, ancient tree, his eyes closed. In the middle of that perfect silence, he hears a sound. A crow perched on a dry branch crying. Yes, a regular old crow. The wise man opens his eyes, looks up at the crow and asks in a kind, soft voice, "Why are you crying, little friend?" The crow's voice is just heavy with despair. He says, I am the most miserable creature of all. Children see me and throw stones, calling me ugly. People chase me out of their yards. They say my feathers bring bad luck. Even when I find a scrap of food, people chase me away. I wish I never existed. I wish I could just disappear. Stop. Let's pause right there for a second. Have you ever felt like that? I wish I wasn't me. I wish I looked like them. I wish my life was as easy as theirs. Do you know what this crow's pain is? Other people's approval. The crow's problem isn't being ugly. It's that other people call him ugly. His problem isn't being bad luck. It's that people say he is. One of the fathers of Stoicism, Epictetus, said, "It is not things that upset us, but our judgments about things." The crow isn't upset because he's black. The crow is upset because of the judgment that being black is bad. And worse, he's put that judgment entirely in the hands of others. Now let's get back to the story. Let's see what the wise man says. The wise man, hearing this outrage, smiled with understanding. After a moment of silence, he spoke. "My dear crow, you cannot control what other people think. You can't control how they should treat you. That's not in your power. If you wish for everything to go exactly according to your desires, and reality turns out different from your expectations, that is when you begin to suffer. So then," said the sage, "your current sadness doesn't come from the events themselves. It comes from the gap between what is, and what you think should be. Your reality is that you are a black crow. Your expectation is that people should love black crows. These two things don't match. But I will help you, said the sage. Since you are so unhappy, I can put an end to your suffering. Tell me, if you had the power to change your nature, what would you choose to be? The crow didn't hesitate for even a second. His eyes lit up. A swan, he said. A pure white swan. Everyone loves swans. They are pure, they are elegant, they are loved. They glide on the lakes. The wise man nodded. Very well. But I have one small request. Before you rush to trade your own nature for someone else's, go and speak with a swan. This is where the trap begins. Comparison. We all do it, don't we? Oh, if I just had their money, I'd be happy. If I just looked like them, I'd be loved. If I just had their job, I'd finally get respect. The crow thinks happiness is hidden in being white. We think happiness is hidden in money, or looks, or status. We do exactly what the crow did. We look at the storefront window of someone else's life and compare it to our own storage room. So the crow is off. He's going to talk to the swan, what he thinks is the pinnacle of happiness. Let's see if the swan is really the happiest creature in the world. For the first time, a glimmer of hope was in the crow's eyes. He flew and flew until he reached a nearby lake. And there, gliding on the surface of the water, he saw the magnificent swan. He approached quietly and said, "Dear swan, you are so magnificent. You are as pure and white as snow. Poets write verses about your grace. You must be the happiest bird in the world." The swan turned its elegant neck toward the crow, but there was no expression of happiness on its face. Its neck drooped slightly. "But I'm not happy," it replied. The crow was in shock. "What do you mean? There are so many beautiful colors in the world," said the swan. "But I am only white, just white. It's boring sometimes. If you only knew how much I envy the parrot for its vibrant colors. All day against the white clouds among the white lilies. Sometimes I'm not even seen, barely remembered." The swan sighed. The parrot. Now that's the one. That magnificent bird covered in a rainbow. He must be the one who knows true happiness, see? The crow envies the swan, and the swan envies the parrot. It's called destination sickness. Always looking for happiness at the next stop. The crow thought happiness was being white. He got to the white one, the swan, and the swan told him, "Nope, happiness isn't being white, it's being colorful. We're just like that. I'll be happy when I graduate. You graduate. Nope, not it. It must be getting a good job. You get the job. Still not it. It must be getting married. You get married. Nope, having kids. Happiness is always at the next stop, and so the crow flies on to the next stop for happiness. The parrot. So the crow immediately took off to find a parrot. Soon he found one in a tropical flowering tree. It had such vibrant colors it was dazzling. The crow perched next to it and said, "Dear parrot, the swan was right about you. You are so colorful, so beautiful. You must be the happiest bird in the world." The parrot, who had been sitting quietly, fluffed its bright feathers and looked around nervously before answering. It lowered its voice. "Happy? Friend, these colors are my curse." The crow was stunned again. "Your curse?" "Yes," said the parrot. "People capture us because of this beauty and stick us in cages. Even right now in this jungle, just talking to you, I am living in constant fear of trappers. I'm not free. I am always on edge." The parrot hid himself a little further in the branches. "But," he said, "the peacock. He's not like us. I don't think any bird knows happiness better than him. He is so magnificent. He's not just beautiful, people worship him. They protect him." This is getting interesting. 1. The crow, at the bottom. I wish I were beautiful. Target, the swan. 2. The swan, who is beautiful. I wish I were colorful. Target, the parrot. 3. The parrot, who is colorful. I wish I were respected and protected. Target, the peacock. Everyone is focused on what someone else has. Everyone thinks what they have is a curse, and what the other person has is a blessing. The peacock, the pinnacle of beauty, majesty, and respect. If he's not happy, nobody is, right? The crow thinks so too, and with his last bit of hope, he flies off to find the final answer to happiness, the peacock. The crow flew for miles in a hurry. Finally, he found the peacock in a temple garden. The sight was incredible. The peacock stood in the center, his tail feathers fanned out, and dozens of temple visitors stared in awe. They were offering him flowers, the finest foods. Finally, thought the crow, this is it. I found a bird that actually has happiness. He waited for the people to leave. When the crowd cleared, he slowly approached the peacock and said, "Dear peacock, you are so beautiful that thousands of people come here just to see you. On the other hand, when people see me, they get scared and run away. You must be the happiest bird in the world." But as the crow got closer and the crowd was gone, the truth was revealed. The peacock lived behind walls, and his feet were bound by thin golden chains. The peacock, walking back toward his cage, replied, "I also used to think I was the most beautiful and happiest bird in the world, until I was captured because of this beauty and locked in this cage. You see," said the peacock, "people worship this beauty, yes, but it is a prison of admiration. I'm not free. When they want me to dance, they pluck my colorful feathers, and it hurts so much, just so I'll fan my tail and dance. Do you know what I dream of, dear crow?" The crow listened in silence. "I dream of flying freely," said the peacock, "of choosing my own path. Sometimes I see you in the sky. You go wherever you want, just a black free dot, soaring. In those moments my heart aches with jealousy. I wish I could be free, just like you." The crow was stunned, frozen. He didn't know what to say. He stammered, But everyone hates me." The peacock took a deep breath and said the one thing that changed everything. "Exactly," he said. "That is your freedom. No one envies you. No one wants to put you in a cage. Those feathers you call ugly, those are your wings of freedom." The crow was looking for happiness. He looked in the swan, beauty. The swan said, "I'm beautiful but boring." He looked in the parrot, color. The parrot said, "I'm colorful but I live in fear." He looked in the peacock, majesty. The peacock said, "I'm majestic but I am a prisoner." And the peacock, the one at the very top, who did he envy? The crow. He envied the very thing the crow hated most about himself. The fact that nobody cared about him. Because that not being cared about was, in fact, freedom. The crow decided to go back to where he started. The crow returned to the wise man sitting under the shade of the old tree, as if no time had passed at all. "Now," said the crow, "now I think I understand. The swan's beauty traps him in boredom. The parrot's colors lock him in fear. The peacock's majesty binds him in golden chains. But me," the wise man smiled and asked, "Yes, and what about you?" "Me," said the crow. "I am free. I was always free. I am free to fly, free to choose, free to exist. The stones the children throw, the people who chase me, that is the price of my freedom. It's like a small ticket paid on a rainy day. The thing I hated most about myself was actually my greatest treasure, and I should be grateful for it." The wise man smiled and summarized the lesson Stoicism has taught for thousands of years. "Remember, crow, the greatest poverty is not having little, but constantly wanting more. The deepest prison is not built from iron bars, but from comparisons. And the strongest chains are the ones made of gold." Happiness begins the moment we stop wishing to be something we are not. From that day on, when the crow looked at his reflection, he no longer saw an ugly black bird. He saw a creature as vast as the limitless sky he flew in, as free as the wind that carried him, and as rich as the life he chose to embrace. And that's the end of our story, my friends. Just like the crow, we can spend our entire lives wishing we were someone else. their car, their house, their relationship, and we can discover who we already are. As the Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius said, "What harms the bee harms the hive." When you harm yourself by comparing yourself to others, you are actually harming the whole you belong to, your very nature. True freedom isn't about changing who you are. True freedom is about letting go of who you think you should be. Those parts of you that you call ugly or not good enough. Maybe those are the very wings of freedom that the peacock envies. Thank you for watching. If this story meant something to you, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. Like the video, leave a comment, and share it with those you care about. I'll see you in the next one.